Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bucket List Podcast. My name is Derek Olson, and if you are listening today, I am so glad that you could join us. As I said, my name is Derek Olson. I am a student at Boston University. I am a freshman in the College of Communications, and welcome to my podcast. I have grown up a fan of the Boston Celtics, and I have always loved basketball, so now here I am talking about basketball on my very own podcast. This is in fact, my first time doing a podcast, so if you are testing out how much you like this podcast, I am also testing out how much I like doing podcasts. So, welcome, and let's do this journey together. So, how the podcast is going to work is that each episode, we will have a bucket list of items to talk about that is going on in the NBA world. And just to clarify some rules, I am recording this episode on Thursday, September 19th, On Tuesday, former NBA center Dwight Howard absolutely amazed me on Dancing with the Stars, but I will sadly not be able to talk about that as I am going to have to keep this podcast to the news of the NBA world. So, even though I won't talk about things like that, I may throw in some pop culture if I want to, because this is my podcast. And each episode of the podcast, I'm going to put up a poll on the Instagram. And if you have not followed the Instagram so far, what are you doing? We will have all updates on what is going on the podcast on our Instagram. And you will also be able to answer our poll of what you would like the podcast to talk about that week. Later on, we will be doing our first viewer input section. So if you have not already, follow the Instagram. Go through our link tree to access our YouTube and our Spotify, where you'll hopefully be able to listen to our podcast on other platforms. And yeah, right now I am a solo podcaster, obviously, but I also plan on bringing in guests later on in the podcast. Not this episode, so that you can get to know me and get to know how the podcast works, but I plan on bringing in guests to talk about their opinions of the NBA later on, whether it be people around Boston or BU students or any kind of that. So that is also in our link tree through our Instagram. So if you would like to be a guest on the Bucket List Podcast, please follow our Instagram and fill out the guest interest form, which is attached to our link tree. So on the bucket list today, we're going to start off with our very first bucket list of the the Bucket List Podcast. And one of the items we already just crossed off, but it was an introduction to me and how the podcast works. We just did that, so that's out of the way. But next, we're going to talk about the NBA offseason, so that since there's nothing going on in the NBA right now, we're going to look back and talk about the NBA offseason. And then we're going to talk about the winners and losers of the offseason, my teams that I thought win or lost the NBA offseason. And then we will be doing our very first viewer input section, which you will find out what the topic is later on. And then we are going to provide an outlook on the upcoming season. So please stay tuned, and I hope you're excited. So let's begin with my favorite moves of the NBA offseason. I have two honorable mentions before we begin with a top 5 for my favorite moves of the NBA offseason. First, we're going to go with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope signing with the Orlando Magic for 2 years and $30 million. So, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a championship DNA 3-and-D shooting guard who I absolutely love as an addition to the Orlando Magic. This man has won 2 championships in the last 5 years, one with the Lakers and one with the Nuggets. And this guy is a veteran asset who can provide for the young talent of the Orlando Magic. And I feel like this is a guy that the Orlando Magic need, as they finished around the 4 or 5 seed. I'm kind of forgetting right now, but the 4 or 5 seed last season. And they seem primed to make a push in the Eastern Conference, which is steadily growing. And now they have added Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, a veteran presence with NBA championship experience, who can also provide to the team from the bench or in the starting lineup, whichever they like. So that is a move that I really like for the Orlando Magic, and I think that should push the Orlando Magic a little further next season. My next honorable mention for my favorite move of the offseason was a big one, Mikal Bridges going to the Knicks in a massive trade, which I have right here. I have Mikal Bridges Keita Bates Diop, I hope I pronounced that right, a second rounder and draft rights to Juan Pablo Valle, hope that I pronounced that right as well, for Bojan Bogdanovic, Mamadi Diakite, I hope I pronounced that right, I most likely didn't, who is now on the Suns, so that doesn't really matter, and Shake Milton, 4 unprotected first rounders through 2031, a pick swap in 2028, a top 4 protected first rounder via the Milwaukee Bucks in 2025, and a second rounder in the year of 2025. Obviously, this is a team between the New York Knicks and Brooklyn Nets, a historic trade that has not happened in a while between the Knicks and the Nets. So the New York Knicks, they obviously reunite all the Villanova boys. You got Brunson, DiVincenzo, Bridges, and Josh Hart. You get them all together on one team. The team chemistry is going to be immaculate this season. They are going to be all together, and hopefully they make a further push than they did last season towards the Eastern Conference Finals. But what I really like here is also for the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, for the last 10 years, have been trying to win by trading for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, to acquiring Kyrie Irving, James Harden, Kevin Durant. This has not worked out at all in the favor of the Brooklyn Nets every single time they have tried, and I am proud of them for finally realizing that it is time for them to rebuild, and they got an absolute boatload of picks for Mikal Bridges, who is a decent player, who is a really good player, stood out on the Phoenix Suns and was the star on the Brooklyn Nets. But now they seem primed for a quick rebuild like Sam Presti did over in Oklahoma. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But yeah, I really like this move for both teams. Mikal Bridges goes to the Knicks, a team that is in win-now mode. And the Brooklyn Nets step back and they reassess and they get a bunch of draft picks that they can use on future talent to hopefully rebuild the team sooner rather than later. So those are my honorable mentions for my favorite moves of the NBA offseason, and now we are going to move on to my top 5. At number 5, you might be shocked, it's Paul George to the Philadelphia... Wow, I messed that up bad. The Philadelphia 76ers for 4 years and $212 million. So, you have Joel Embiid, you have Tyrese Maxey, you lose Tobias Harris to the Pistons. In the eyes of Philadelphia fans, losing Tobias Harris probably is a good sign because you have been overpaying him for years for production that is less than his contract value. So you are happy to lose him. And then Paul George leaves the Clippers and no one really knows where he's going to go. And now Philadelphia gets a amazing all-around player who is old, but is seriously overlooked in the league right now as he is still putting up amazing stats. And yeah, this is Philadelphia trying one more time to go all in with Maxey, Embiid, and now Paul George as they hope to get to at least the NBA Conference Finals, which is something Joel Embiid has not done yet in his NBA career. So that's all I got about on that move. So let's move on to number 4. Number 4, I got DeMar DeRozan going to the Sacramento Kings in a sign and trade where he is now being paid $74 million over the span of 3 years. It was a 3-team trade. DeRozan went to the Kings. Harrison Barnes went to the Spurs. I did not put down where Chris Duarte went. I believe he went to the Bulls. Yes, he went to the Bulls, obviously, because that's where DeMar DeRozan came from. All right. Sorry about that. Got a little mixed up on my notes. And I really like this move for the Kings. This is on the cheaper side contract, I'd say, because DeMar DeRozan is still a really good offensive player who is having a lot of output on the offensive end. And you have De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. And the West is really strong, and I'm glad that the Sacramento Kings realized that they could add another piece to further solidify themselves in the Western Conference. Nothing really on Harrison Barnes to the Spurs. Chris Duarte and 2 second-rounders to the Bulls. I mean, in general, the Bulls finally, like the Nets, finally realized that they need to rebuild, and I'm glad that they did so by loading off DeMar DeRozan. For number 3, for my favorite moves of the offseason, I have Derek White extending with the Boston Celtics. Now, I know I've talked about trades and signings in the last 2 moves and all of that, but I'm going with a contract extension for my third favorite move of the NBA offseason. You have the defending champions who are spewing money out of God knows where. I understand why Wyc Grouchbeck is deciding to sell the team, because this team is getting ridiculously expensive. But here is a nice, cheap, really good move extension for the Boston Celtics. You have Derek White, who is getting extended for 4 years, $118 million, after being an essential piece to the team's title run. And now you are paying Derek White less per year than the Miami Heat is paying Tyler Hero. In my eyes, that's an absolute win. The Celtics have locked down Jason Tatum, making him the highest paid NBA player right now. You have Jaylen Brown still on his contract extension. You just extended Kristaps Porzingis last season. You have Al Horford for another year or 2. Xavier Tillman re-signed. Peyton Pritchard's locked down for the next 3 years, I believe. And now you have Derek White for the next 4 years. I really see no downside to this move. You re-signed an essential piece to your championship team for really cheap, and now they are primed to hopefully go for another title. Go Celtics. But my second favorite move of the NBA offseason is from the Oklahoma City Thunder, who I said we would be talking about later. It is them trading for Alex Caruso from the Bulls for Josh Giddey. Obviously, we all know. If you don't know what happened with Josh Giddey last season, then that's okay. Josh Giddey had some off-court problems last season, and Josh Giddey has been just an all-right player. But now you are trading for Alex Caruso, another 3-and-D guy like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. I love my 3-and-D guys. I think they're great. And he's also a veteran. He was on the Lakers team that won as well. So you have more championship DNA on this Thunder team. It's more veteran presence, great shooter, great defender. And on a young Thunder team that already finished first last season, I believe this is a really great piece to add to just remove Josh Giddey. You didn't have to give up anything else. So I really like that move for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then my favorite move of the NBA offseason also comes from the Oklahoma City Thunder. It is them signing Isaiah Hartenstein for 3 years and $87 million. Hartenstein was a really good center for the Knicks last year, a good fill-in for an unhealthy Mitchell Robinson. He was putting up really high rebound numbers, probably some of the highest in the league. And now you add Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, and now you are adding Isaiah Hartenstein, which is unbelievable. I can't believe the Thunder made both of these moves this offseason. The Thunder only got better, and they were just the 1 seed last year with a really young core. So the Oklahoma City Thunder are doing amazing things over in the Western Conference, and I really like those moves for them. So now we are going to move on and talk about our next section on the bucket list. We're going to talk about my winners and losers of the NBA offseason. First, we're going to start off with the losers of the NBA offseason, and I will begin with an honorable mention. My honorable mention for my losers of the NBA offseason are the Atlanta Hawks, who they traded DeJounte Murray to the New Orleans Pelicans, which is a big loss for them because they gave up a lot of pieces to gain him, to put it next to Trae Young, and that didn't work out well. They obviously didn't go very far in the playoffs, and now you have to move on from that piece. Trae Young is all alone, and you lose Saddiq Bey, your starting forward, to free agency. I forget which team he signed with. And you got a very high draft pick in the first round, and you draft a very tall center from France who I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but hopefully, like Victor Wembanyama, you have good success with him. So maybe there is a win in the loss of an Atlanta Hawks offseason. So that's why I only give them an honorable mention for my losers of the NBA offseason. But for my 3 losers of the NBA offseason, I went with the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the other Los Angeles team, the Lakers. So for the Miami Heat, as we talked about already, the Eastern Conference has been getting stronger. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope signed with the Knicks, like we talked about. Mikal Bridges went to the Knicks. Paul George went to the 76ers. The Celtics retained every piece. And Cleveland also retained every piece, which I liked for them this offseason, even though they are not on my winners list, spoiler alert. But Miami, they didn't do much this offseason, and they didn't really make any shocking moves to make their team better. They still have Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and 2 years ago, they made a run to the NBA Finals, but it feels like the Eastern Conference is only getting better, and Miami is getting stagnant, and one day they are going to find themselves not able to keep up with the competition in the Eastern Conference, and it'll be too late, and Jimmy Butler will be out the door. So that's why I deem Miami Heat's offseason a loss. And then moving on to the Clippers, obviously you lose Paul George to the Sixers, and you also lost Russell Westbrook to the Denver Nuggets. So you still have James Harden, and you still have Kawhi Leonard, and you just re-signed Ivica Zubac, your starting center. But losing Russell Westbrook and Paul George are obviously big losses, because Paul George and Kawhi Leonard was supposed to be the next big duo in the NBA when you acquired them. And load management has been an absolute nightmare for the Los Angeles Clippers. And now you lose Paul George, you've lost Russell Westbrook, and now you just have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. And it feels like this team is slowly falling apart. So maybe James Harden and Kawhi Leonard can still hold it together, but I'm a little scared for the offseason that the Clippers had. So that's why I have them as a loser for the offseason. And then the other Los Angeles team, the Lakers, who I also have as the loser for this offseason, the Lakers didn't really do anything either. They signed LeBron to an extension, but LeBron and AD are only getting older. They made a really good draft pick in the first round. I will give them that. They selected Dalton Knecht from Tennessee, who was great. And then obviously you draft Bronny in the second round, father and son. That's cool, I guess, but you didn't really do much else. And the Western Conference is really strong, and you want LeBron to go out on a high note, but the Lakers didn't really do anything to help LeBron have a good season. So we're all just going to watch LeBron and Bronny play basketball this season. That's about it for the Lakers. And now, on a more positive note, I'm going to give you my winners of the NBA offseason. Like the losers, I do have an honorable mention. Give me 1 second. Here it is. My honorable mention for the winners of the offseason are the Denver Nuggets, who I almost did put as a winner for the offseason. Like I talked about, you get Russell Westbrook on a really cheap deal. Good for them. That is a great veteran point guard who you can put next to Nikola Jokic. He used to be a triple-double machine. Maybe you can unlock something with him and Nikola Jokic. He doesn't have to shoot as much. You still have Jamal Murray. You still have Michael Porter Jr. You only lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So adding Russ is great. And you also signed Dario Saric, who I just feel like a championship follows him wherever he goes. So I like that move for Denver. Yeah, adding Russ and Saric, I see both of those moves as positives for Denver, and only being removed 2 years from an NBA title. I really like what Denver did this offseason, and I feel like they're ready to make a push again. And then my 3 actual winners for the offseason, I have the Boston Celtics, the Orlando Magic, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like I talked about with the Boston Celtics earlier, they were able to retain every single piece, and now they look primed for a hopefully rerun at the NBA title. I'm recording this on this section on September 20th, and The Celtics are already in the Auerbach Center practicing. The whole team is there. So the league better look out because Team USA made Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown extremely upset this offseason. So everyone look out. Orlando, I don't know why. I just like the offseason that Orlando had. I mean, you signed KCP, but you've still got a really good young core, and adding KCP is another great move. So I kind of already talked about why I liked Orlando's offseason, but it's great. You also retained Jonathan Isaac and Mo Wagner, and yeah, good offseason for Orlando. And then my last winner, if you couldn't tell by my favorite moves, I have Oklahoma City. You add Caruso and Hartenstein, and you still have your entire core. And you finished first in the West last season, and your guys are only going to get more experienced and better. So I like the offseason that Oklahoma City had. So that was my winners and losers of the NBA offseason, and now we are going to move on to my viewer input section, where we had an overwhelming response, and by overwhelming I mean we had 2 out of 3 vote for me to predict the standings of next season. So I will go through both Eastern and Western Conference. I will go from 15 to 1. I will provide you a little explanation as to why I think each team will end up where I put them, and you can enjoy. So here we go. Starting in the Eastern Conference at the 15th seed, I have the Detroit Pistons. An absolutely hysterically bad season last year, and I don't really think it's going to get any better for them. There's not much else I can say about that. That's Detroit for you. And then I have 14 Washington Wizards. It seems like the Jordan Poole experiment isn't working out very well in Washington, but we'll see what happens. We'll see if they get any better this season. Brooklyn, you lose Mikal Bridges. You've gotten your draft picks. You still have Nicholas Claxton. You have an all right team. You're rebuilding right now, so yep. Number 13, Brooklyn Nets. The 12th seed, the Chicago Bulls. You lose DeMar DeRozan, and you're finally realizing that you need to rebuild. So obviously they're going to have a worse season than they did last year. Number 11, the Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo Ball, hopefully he can start playing some better ball. And yeah, hopefully the Charlotte Hornets can play a little better and become more of a mainstream team in the NBA, because LaMelo Ball is fun to watch, and that'll be nice. At the 10th seed, the first spot in the play-in, I have the Toronto Raptors. Now, you lost OG Anunoby to the Knicks, but you have RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, and even though they didn't finish with a good record last year, I feel like they'll be able to put together some better basketball this year and hopefully be able to claw their way into the play-in. And then at the 9th seed, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Even though you did lose DeJounte Murray and Sadiq Bey, hopefully your rookie center is able to give you some production, and Trae Young can actually step up and play some basketball on his own. 8th seed, I have the Miami Heat. They didn't do anything this offseason. I just think they'll stay stagnant to where they were last season. Good enough to get in the playoffs, but not good enough to get far. So at the 7th seed, I have the Indiana Pacers. They were obviously a very shocking team last season. They made it to the conference finals somehow. Tyrese Halliburton, hopefully he keeps playing great basketball. Aaron Nesmith, former Celtics draft pick. Andrew Nembhard. Yeah, Pacers have a good team. And yeah. At the 6th seed, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Like I talked about, they retained all their pieces. And Cleveland's got a good young team, and they will keep getting better. At the 5th seed, I have the Orlando Magic. I've talked about how much I liked Orlando's offseason. I just have Orlando at 5 because the Eastern Conference is so good at the top. At the 4th seed, I have the New York Knicks. Adding Mikal Bridges hopefully eclipses New York to more playoff prominence than they had last season. 3rd seed, 76ers. Hopefully Paul George takes the Sixers to where they need to go. Joel Embiid just signed a massive contract extension. Tyrese Maxey can hopefully keep playing great ball. and hopefully Paul George takes them to where they need to go. At the second seed, I have not the Milwaukee Bucks. There we go. I think people have forgotten Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard. They are on a team together. They're on the Milwaukee Bucks, and this season they are going to play much better basketball than they played last season. And yeah, they will be a threat in the Eastern Conference this year. They got over their growing pains hopefully last season, and now they're together. Now they're playing basketball, and they are going to be a serious threat. But at the 1 seed, I have the reigning champs, my Boston Celtics. Team USA, I don't know what they did, but they made Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown very angry, and they're going to be sad when the Celtics maybe win back-to-back. That would be nice. Going over to the Western Conference, starting at number 15, I have the Portland Trail Blazers. Another rebuilding team. They just drafted Donovan Clayton from UConn. I like that draft pick for them. Another rebuilding team. Don't expect much from them. Number 14, I have the Utah Jazz. They were somehow able to re-sign Lauri Markkanen, even though everyone thought he was going to Golden State. But still, the West is too good, and I don't think Utah will be able to make much of a dent. Coming in at 13, I have the Golden State Warriors. Steph lost his other half, and they weren't really able to make that move that's going to help Steph have a good year this year. So this year, Steph will hopefully be Steph Curry, but I don't think Golden State will be doing much. Number 12, I have the Houston Rockets. Coach Ime Udoka, even though his off the court, he's not the best human being. He's a good coach, and I liked what he did with the Celtics. And this Houston core is young, it's talented, it's explosive, and hopefully they should be able to play a little bit better basketball, even though they may not be in the playoffs yet. Number 11, I have the Clippers. The West is good, and I don't know how Harden and Leonard are going to keep up this Clippers team, especially if Leonard is being load managed like he has been the past couple years. So hopefully Harden and Leonard can pull it together and keep this Clippers team afloat, but I really don't see that happening. First spot in the play-in, I have the Lakers. LeBron somehow ends up in the playoffs every year, and I'm not going to count LeBron out. So at the 10 seed, I have the Lakers. At the 9 seed, I have the San Antonio Spurs. Victor Wembanyama is coming for the face of the league, and you just got Chris Paul to put at the point guard beside him. I think that'll be a great dynamic, and I'm excited to see where that Spurs team goes. At the 8th seed, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, Zion. Zion can hopefully be somewhat like he was at Duke, and this team will definitely be a play-in team if Zion shows even a slight resemblance to how he was at Duke. Getting out in the NBA, it's been a rough start for Zion, but hopefully he turns it around. And if he does, this New Orleans team should be set. At the 7th seed, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. So many injuries last year that everyone has forgotten about this Grizzlies team, but this team has Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart, and JJJ. So this is a talented, gritty Memphis team that I think will be able to make some noise once again in the Western Conference. At the... oh boy. I lost my track of count. There we go. At the 6th seed, I have the Sacramento Kings. Like we talked about, they added DeMar DeRozan, and this Kings team is fun to watch. So hopefully they're able to get into the playoffs and, yeah, have them as the 6th seed. At the 5th seed, I have the Phoenix Suns. KD, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. And I really liked how they added Monte Morris for very cheap. You finally fill in that backup point guard spot. And, yeah, don't count out Kevin Durant. It's like counting out LeBron. You can't count out Kevin Durant. At the 4th seed, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is so fun to watch, and this Timberwolves team is great. Rudy Gobert, Cat, Jaden McDaniels. It's a great team, and they should play somewhat close to how they played last season. At the 3rd seed, I had the Dallas Mavericks. Obviously, they acquired Klay Thompson last year in the offseason, and we'll see how much better that makes the Mavericks. And you still have Kyrie and Luka Doncic. At the 2nd seed, I had the Denver Nuggets. Like we talked about, they added Russell Westbrook and Dario Saric, and this team is already great enough as it is with Nikola Jokic. So this team will continue to play great basketball and will end up at the 2 seed. And then at number 1, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. What more can I say? I've said everything I like about the OKC Thunder. Really young core, Alex Caruso, Isaiah Hartenstein. It's going to be a great season for the Thunder. I'm excited for them. And yeah, that was my viewer input section. That was my predictions for the standings for the next NBA season. And just to talk briefly what I think about the next season, I think the West is really good. I've got the Clippers are out of the play-in, and the Clippers have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, Steph Curry. The West is great. And the East, the back end isn't the best, but it's very top heavy. And I like the Clevelands and Orlandos of the East, and I like that it's young and it feels like it's gradually getting better each season. So I like what's going on in both conferences. And I would like to inform you listeners that I, in fact, will be at the Celtics season opener on October 22nd. I will be there for the ring ceremony with their jackets, which look amazing. Their jackets look absolutely amazing. Look them up if you haven't. They'll raise the banner, obviously, and they'll take on the New York Knicks. So I'll get to see what the Villanova boys are doing and how they're playing. So, yep. I'm excited to see how wrong I am with these standings. I am absolutely sure that some of these will be wrong. Probably one of the teams I have out of the playoffs in the West will make it in. And we'll see what happens. Yep. So that's it. That's my first episode of the Bucket List Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And the next episode should come out sometime next week. I will keep it updated via the Instagram. Please follow if you haven't. It's at thebucketlist_pod if you can find the Instagram. And thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Thank you for going on this journey with me. And hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.